You should have this opened on your screen now, and these have 8 story problems here for us to work through and find that percent of change. So you need your calculator and lined paper as well, right? So we're going to work these out on lined paper. I'm going to show you the work on here in front of you. And you're going to use your calculator, obviously, to go through and calculate like we did yesterday and find that percent of change. So here at the top, I'm going to write down what we used to help us find that percent of change. So remember, the first fraction was n over 100, because we talked about percents are always out of 100. And in the numerator in this second fraction, we talked about the difference over the original. So we need to be able to tell in the story what the original amount is and what the new amount is for us to then find the difference between those two, and that helps us find that percent of change. So we're going to look at number 1. And it says a popular brand of running shoe costs a local store $68 for each pair. If the store sells the shoes for $119, what is the percent of increase in the price? So it's already telling you it's going to be an increase, meaning that you have this $68 originally, and the store is selling them for $119. So this is your original, and this is your new. So if we set it up and we talk about n over 100, the next thing you need to do is find that difference. So subtract those two values. 119 minus 68. So pick up your calculator, subtract those amounts right now, and let's get that difference figured out. So when you do subtract in your calculator, I hope you see that that is a difference of $51. And underneath, right, we put that original amount. The original amount was 68. And now we have it set up where we can go through and solve. So I'm going to cross multiply here. So I'm going to do 68 times n. Let's see. 68n equals 100 times 51. 5,100. Let's solve it. So we're going to divide by 68. So you're going to take 5,100 divided by 68 and get 75%. So there was a 75% increase. Go back to this. I'm trying to find the best way to put the answer here. 75% increase in the price of those shoes. 75%. Okay, let's try another one. So number 2. Last year, the Backgammon Club had 30 members. This year, the club has 24 members. Find the percent of decrease in the number of members. Again, it's telling you it's decreasing, and it's right. It's going from 30 to 24. So this 30 is your original amount of members, and this 24 is the new amount. It changed over the last year, so they've decreased in the amount of members. So setting this one up, n over 100, and then here, the difference. So you're subtracting 30 minus 24. That's a difference of 6 members there. And then put that original down at the bottom out of 30. Okay, so I'm also going to cross multiply here. So I'm going to take 30 times n and get 30n. And I'm going to take 100 times 6 and get 600. And I'm going to divide by 30. 30 divided by 30 gives me 1n. 600 divided by 30. Go ahead, calculate that right now for me, please. And you should, in your calculator, hopefully see 20%. So that is a 20% decrease. So I'll write that up top here. 20% decrease in the amount of members from last year to this year. They lost 20% of their members for this club. Okay, let's look at number 3. In the 7th grade, Rachel read 15 books, and in 8th grade, she read 18 books. Find the percent of increase in the number of books. Percent of increase, yep, you're going from 15 books in 7th grade to 18 books in 8th grade. That is increasing by 3 books. So the 15 here is the original amount. The 18 is the new amount. So setting it up and over 100. The difference up top here, like we just said, you're going from 15 books to 18 books. There's a difference of 3 books within that year. And always put the original. So the original amount you're starting with, 15. So I can cross multiply here, but what I can also do, which I have been showing you, is I can take this 3/15 and reduce it, because I'm hoping then I can see a better way to go from this fraction on the right to this fraction on the left. I want to see how much bigger it's getting. So I'm going to take and reduce this. 3/15 reduces to 1/5. And so knowing that, if I look in the denominator, going from 5 to 100, that's getting 20 times bigger there from the right fraction to the left. Okay, well, if I know that, then that means here from the right to the left, this is also going to get 20 times bigger. So that means 1 times 20 is 20%. And in this case, it told you that it was an increase. So the amount of books read from 7th grade year till 8th grade year was an increase of 20% or 3 more books. Okay, number 4. Last year, 762 students voted in the student council election at San Bruno Middle School. This year, 721 students voted. What was the percent of change in the number of students that voted to the nearest 10th? So this time it just says, what was the percent of change? Now we talked about you should always know you should always know if it is an increase or a decrease in that percent of change. Well, last year, this original amount right here was 762 students. This year, which is your new amount, there's 721 students that voted. So from 762 to 721, that is absolutely a decrease. And so let's see how much it decreased. N over 100, right? So when we're working these out, remember you're using that lined paper. And you should be working these out with me. You should be setting these proportions up just like I am so that you can go about and solve it. And so following along still here, we're going to find the difference. We're going to do 762 minus 721. And you calculate that right now, and you write down in that fraction, in that numerator, the difference. And hopefully you see a difference of 41. You should also be putting in that original amount. Last year, there were 762 students. And now these are, the denominator is pretty big. And I also know that that's going to be a denominator that will not go into 100 evenly as well. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to see how much one fraction is growing from the other. So I'm going to cross multiply here. So I'm going to do 762 times n. And I'm going to do 100 times 41. 4,100. Go ahead and solve it. So you right now, go ahead and divide 4,100 by 762. Let's find that percent of decrease. Now this answer says to round to the nearest tenth. And so if you're dividing that out right now, that 4,100 divided by 762, you're going to see a pretty big decimal. And it's coming out, and I'm just going to write a few of them down, 5.3805, and then it just keeps going. Nearest tenth. So here's your tenths in the 3. Your hundredths is in the 8, so you have to look at that 8. That 8 tells you what to do to the tenths spot, which means 5 point, the 8's going to round the 3 up, 4%, and that was a decrease that we talked about. 5.4% decrease. So going from 762 students to 721 students that voted last year for student council election was a decrease of 5.4%. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. And then once I do number 5, I think I'm just going to leave 6, 7, and 8 here. So you have time to go to the quizzes and practice the percentage change on those as well. But you could always at some point come back here to the agenda and work 6, 7, and 8 out if you needed that extra practice. So let's take a look at number 5. When Ricardo was 9 years old, he was 56 inches tall. Ricardo is now 12 years old, and he is 62 inches tall. So find the percent of increase in his height to the nearest tenth. All right, let's do it. So setting up my proportion, I'm going to look. 56 is the original height when he was 9. He's now 12 and he's 62 inches, so that's his new. So what's that difference? 62 inches minus 56 inches. And that would be a difference of 6 inches. And then that original amount. So remember, he was originally 56 inches when he was 9 years old. So again, here I'm looking, I'm going to take and cross multiply this one instead of reducing this fraction. So I'm going to do 56 times n. And I'm going to do 100 times 6. And I'm going to divide by 56. N equals, let's see that percent of increase. So calculate that out. And this should also be rounded to the nearest tenth. You get a big decimal. So your decimal that you should be seeing when you calculate it is 10.714. 2, and it keeps going, right? So nearest tenth, I'm looking in the hundredths. I'm looking at the 1, and that tells me what to do to that 7, and I don't round it. So that means here it is a 10.7% increase in his height. 10.7% increase in height. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to stop here. You can come back, or if you honestly really want to, you can do 6, 7, and 8 right now on your own and try those. Otherwise, you should be headed here right now. Go into the stream, go to the quizzes link, open that up, and try some more percentage change story problems, again, using that same line paper that you've been using right now. Time is yours. See you on Monday.